Hello, and welcome to Wyverns and Weirdos Fathomless, the tabletop RPG podcast set in the world of Fierlor. I am your Dungeon Master, Darby, and joining me as always are Mitch playing 𝗖𝗔𝗦𝗧, Jake playing the Fishman, Joe playing 𝗖𝗔𝗦𝗧, Laura playing 𝗔𝗦𝗧, Zoe playing 𝗖𝗔𝗦𝗧, and Eddie playing 𝗔𝗦𝗧. Let's jump into it. So, where we last left off, the party, after making their way into space and following the lights anomalies, found the apparent cause of the anomaly. An old friend, Rue Friday, in a semi-corporeal form, who, upon the party meeting at the epicenter of the light event, manifested momentarily to guide the party somewhat with what they knew. Meanwhile, 𝗖𝗔𝗦𝗧's corpse was investigated by 𝗖𝗔𝗦𝗧, noting a small, reasonably fresh inch-long scar on his torso. So, where we left in particular was as 𝗖𝗔𝗧 was at the helm of the ship and able to pilot it towards potentially one of the pinpoints of light that Rue was able to point towards, and 𝗖𝗔𝗦𝗧's body was cast adrift into the astral sea off the side of the ship. So, what would folks like to do?
So as a point of order, I believe at the end of the last session, when we were talking about what we were doing, 𝗖𝗔𝗧 has essentially pointed the spirited gull at the rough approximation of a good course to the moon. However, we are currently still stationary. So we're not moving at this point, and 𝗖𝗔𝗧 is just kind of working on a couple of thought processes of his own while he's waiting for the go-ahead from the captain.
Speaking of the captain, 𝗔𝗦𝗧.
Alright. Well, 𝗔𝗧 has been sort of just doing his best to check over the ship. He's not sure. I mean, again, this is the maiden voyage. He's really not sure what to do. He's also very restless, so he's just sort of pacing around. I suppose he would at some point, after like a little bit of just like tertiarily making sure that like the rest of the crew aren't, I don't know, about to go and leap out into space or something like that. 𝗔𝗧 is going to make his way to the helm. I'm going to rephrase that because it's really awkwardly done. I didn't plan anything. 𝗔𝗧 is going to make his way towards the helm. He's going to sort of just like step in the hallway and then sort of tilt his head around and then see how is 𝗖𝗧 sort of piloting this helm. Like what does it look like? Well, it's sitting on a chair basically.
Yeah, so he's sitting on a chair and it is all mental. It is psionically linked to him and he is able to control it with a mere thought. Now, how that how that manifests within the world, there is a bit of scope for a given spelljammer to have their own bit of flair to the process. Whether or not 𝗖𝗧 does so is a matter for you, Mitch.
I think at the current moment, 𝗖𝗧, when the ship is operating, and if anyone was down at the helm when he was taking control, I think there is a very ethereal connection between the helmsman and the ship itself. So 𝗖𝗧, for instance, has this connection with the ship. There are almost images being transferred very rapidly between the two entities almost, and they can sort of almost be visualized from outsiders. So there are almost like strands going from Neris's fingers, going from Neris's mind into the armrests, the seat, the back of this essentially throne. At the moment, however, this is almost inert because the ship is not currently moving, and Neris is trying to focus on many different things at the moment. So I think what Janice would see is Neris completely still, sitting upright, eyes closed, having no interaction at all with the outside world. However, looking off to the left at one of the writing desks is a slightly translucent figure of Neris in his mental state, and he's surrounded by also translucent tomes and maps and pieces of paper with different jumbled writing on it that you gather as potentially an image from his own mind that he's trying to visualize and connect dots to. And this figure will look up at you as you enter.
It's strange seeing you around so many places all at once, Director.
It is strange being in so many places at once, Captain.
Have you done this before? Or is this truly the first maiden voyage in all senses? As he pads over.
Everything here is new and exploratory. There have been discussions about its potential. However, this is akin to a first for me.
I see. Well then, congratulations. We'll have to drink on it later when things are more settled. Is this what... Have you traversed a plane before? Sort of hard to think that this is not only the sky above, but a different plane entirely. I've heard of the plane of water, of course. Sailed across many aberrations and manifestations of it. Some say it is the center and the well of Shognish's entire being. The sea that courses through the landing gives life to everything, but this is something else entirely. If we make good of things, if things are righted, they will be great stories told of us. Great stories indeed.
Perhaps. Although I do not... Yes, great stories indeed. Now, Captain, I do have a question for you.
Of course.
You are in charge of this venture.
Yes. That is the role you appointed me in.
Indeed. And as your first charge on the Spirited Gull, now that everything has changed, this is no longer an attempt to flee a rapidly dangerous situation. This is now exploratory, investigative, potentially some form of rescue.
Potentially. My concern is I'm not certain what it is like back in Ankathir, but I can only imagine there will be a great hullabaloo that the Pact Guard will be seeking to right.
Our names may also be in that list.
Yes. As much as this is an exploration, considering what we left from in such a hurry, I am not certain what we will find when we return. It is probably for the best that we do follow these hunches, so to speak, try and beat 𝗖𝗔𝗦𝗧, the god, the pirate queen, try and beat them to the punch, so to speak.
Believe, unfortunately, Captain, given our current situations, everyone not currently aboard this vessel may potentially be an enemy.
He sighs and turns minutely away for a moment, and then just nods and turns back. Still not quite sure whether to be focusing on this spectral image that he's mostly talking to or the inert figure in the chair. You are correct. It's difficult. Back on the seas, if you were quarreling with some ship or one another, or going to loot someone, so shall we say, it was quite a straightforward affair. But when magic is involved, when planes are involved, when gods are involved, the scale seems almost overwhelming at all times, doesn't it?
At most times, yes. But that is only when you look at the grand scale. Perhaps, as captain, in order to progress, one should focus on the problems that can be solved.
Yes, you were very correct.
There are many texts on those who have fought against a god. There are few who have succeeded, and fewer still who are correct in their assumption of succession.
That's true. I've heard the tales.
However, it does not do to have one wonder about those tales when there is so much more to focus on. We have achieved a great many things today. We are not only in possession of a vessel so advanced that we can traverse a great distance and potentially into other planes, all the planes, but we also have an opportunity to rescue that which was once lost.
Yes, the doctor.
The doctor.
Someone who, for some reason, the you that is not you sought to destroy. Unwinding the reason why is the truth to all this matter, I think.
Captain, there is magic I do not yet understand. The magic of time, space, everything. There are certain magics that you're not taught in your standard curriculum.
Well, certainly not mine.
I also did not receive a standard curriculum, yet I was not taught this either. There was magic. There is magic in Rue, and I believe there is also Rue in magic. Lation understood that and the risk it posed to his mission, and he sought to destroy its magic so that it could not be used. He believes what he is doing is right.
Yes.
He also believes what he is doing is the only way to win.
Yes.
What if it wasn't?
Another way.
What if there was another way?
A way to cheat your future.
A way to change my future?
I believe that's possible. As you said, you just need to find the questions to the answers, or vice versa. We have these pinpoints, a friend scattered across the stars. We have that orrery that your other self had me dig up months ago. We have a god, and the champion of that god, and that god's right-hand man. We have all that stuff that's going on with Alden, which I don't... It seems to be all tied in. It's just... he has a lot going on, honestly, but everyone seems to, I guess. Just need to find out what it all means. But I suppose you're correct. We need to just focus on what we can deal with, and then try and simplify from there. So we go to the moon, it sounds like.
That seems to be the logical option. Funny, going to the moon is logical.
Oh, yes. I mean, I've read stories about moons, and men in them and things like that. Cheese and all that. Wonder what it'll be like. It sort of feels all surreal, doesn't it? Wouldn't it be funny if we woke up tomorrow? None of this had happened. We'd just be sailing away on the Polaris as we always did. No sin seekers, no doppelgangers, perhaps a siren or two.
It was out one of those.
Would we be better off?
Would you prefer that?
Some of the things I prefer not to have experienced. I would prefer not to have the danger upon my family. But I do appreciate the friendships that are growing here. As I'm sure you've understood for a long time, Friar, and while I was gone, I don't let people in very easily. But it's nice having them around, don't you think? Once in a while.
Right as always, Captain.
We'll drink later. How long do you need before we set off? You're the one pulling the strings here, literally, I suppose. He gestures to the strands of magic and the figure in the chair.
As you look over to the figure in the chair, there is a slight glow in the center of his forehead as something is starting to manifest, but it's too difficult to figure out at this moment.
Oh.
And the materialized Neris, if possible, I need to finish gathering my thoughts. I
Good.
can set sail within the hour. However, in an emergency, we can go straight away. Say the word. I am at your disposal, Captain.
As I am to you. Good. Rest. We shall leave within the hour when you are ready. Congratulations. Hopefully the stars will have the answers we seek. Thank you for the talk. He nods curtly and then leaves.
Mechanically, Darby, that is Neris asking for a short rest because there are a couple
Yes.
of things we would like to do.
You can have a short rest. All right. So, is there anything in particular folks are doing in the meantime. Of course, anyone else can take mechanically a short rest as well during this intervening time.
As everything is happening, as we're sort of setting about, I believe Loren had gone back below deck. She's gonna go into her room. She's gonna dig around in her bag a little bit. She's gonna pull something out of the bag, and then she is going to go to wherever she assumes the fish man is.
He's trying to be by himself at the crow's nest. But people keep on coming up to him today. So.
Sorry. She kind of stands at the bottom of the crow's nest and like looks up. It's maybe been about like 20 minutes since the last person would have gone up to him. And she just looks up at him. Co-navigator.
Co-navigator to Loren.
She holds up the item in her hand. Would you care for a drink? It is brandy.
Fishman is having some deja vu. Because I believe that's the exact same thing Alton
just tried to do, yes. Yes. Janice is not the only one who has a ream of people coming up to him being like, hello.
Tonight is not a good night.
No, it isn't.
But usually, an offer for a drink comes with an offer for a conversation.
It does?
Do you want to come up here, or I'll come down there?
Oh, you know where I'd rather be. And she's just gonna zip up. She's gonna misty step halfway up and then fly the last 10 feet. And just kind of lands perched on top of like the little, I don't know, the little bucket he's sitting in. Just alight upon it, one hand leaning up against like the rest of the little pole that's sticking up. Good view.
Full of panache as always, I see.
Can't go anywhere
yes.
without it.
One thing you will note as well, because you came up so quickly, you kind of caught him a little off guard. He would have slammed the book closed as soon as you came up and put that away.
Reading?
More the opposite.
Anti-reading.
You know what I mean, Loren. Writing.
You can write?
Oh, I can do lots of things. What
can.
brings you up here, Loren? And you will probably notice he is being a little direct.
Yeah, okay, cool. She kind of just looks at him. We just saw an old friend. Wanted to make sure you were okay, because I'm not.
Nor am I. Had quite a fair bit on my mind. For the past few days, and even now, I feel like that is nothing compared to now.
It's been a pretty fucked up couple of days.
It makes the whole Heads of the Hydra thing feel like a field trip almost.
Watching the future version of one of your friends murder 12 people, yeah, that kind of is chunk change compared to some of the shit we've been dealing with. God, is this what you guys used to be like?
We often change quite a fair bit. I wouldn't be surprised.
That doesn't answer, but I'm gonna sit down. And she just like sits on the edge of the little bucket, so it's just her feet in there with you, and she's kind of leaning.
Still not sure how to feel about it. I believe that our course has changed since then, and I have no doubt that Neris is following some trail, but
whether or not it's whether or not it's a trail we should be on as well.
What do you mean?
I mean, I'm not suggesting mutiny. Before anyone gets any ideas in their head that the pirate's going to suggest mutiny, because that's not what I'm talking about. But I'm just saying, I think someone should pick him up a little bit and rattle him like a maraca. I think he needs it to get the bad ideas out of his brain.
Surely you would be the best one to do that.
I'm not that strong. I need to get you or Janice on my side if that's going to happen and have any impact. I may showboat a little bit here, Fishman, but I'm aware of what these can do. And she flexes. Nothing happens.
I think you underestimate yourself, and you also overestimate Neris's weight. I've seen that man get blown over in the wind.
Have ya? We're talking about that.
Definitely is a sight to see.
We'll have to generate some air then.
You're quite cheerful. How?
Because life sucks right now. And if I let it suck too much, I'm not getting out of that bed. So maybe misery loves company, and I'd rather talk to someone, even if it's about stupid shit, because then at least all the big shit we're dealing with that makes 12 people dying seem like chump change isn't as bad.
I'm not sure how you do it, honestly. It's
you
easy to avoid questions, it's easy to put on a fake smile, but I'm not sure how you have this view on things.
My life is destruction, Fishman.
You and me both.
Do you know how old you are? Do you have like a guess? Because I can't pick how old you are. I've never seen anything that looks like you.
Personally, I wouldn't know. I've counted about 80 years.
8.
T.
80? What?
But I've always known myself this way.
You haven't aged.
I don't remember being young. I don't feel myself getting old. Even in that cave, all that changed was a bit of facial hair.
Huh. That's... wow. 80? Damn.
Well, I guess in a sense, I'm 80 plus.
Huh. I really am out here just assuming everyone's around my age or like the equivalent there of 80. You're older than me, ex-captain.
It's, I've never been ailed by age.
Do you think you ever will?
Sure that is quite likely. Not many live forever. Most are sick and twisted people, and some aren't here. Of the divine. And really is that living.
Personally, I don't think so.
We face the captain again,
Aye, we did. Technically.
and you seem unshaken.
She didn't try to attack me this time.
She seemed to have her hands full, but do you think that if she had the opportunity, would she have?
I'm sort of coming to the terms, and for the first time there is that sort of crack in the facade. I'm sort of coming to terms with the fact that I don't think she would have looked at me at all.
You've known me for a while,
Aye.
and you know of my quirks, my traits.
I know you're weird.
Unique is how I'd put it.
Eccentric.
Ooh, I like that one. I can be a bit poetic at times. I find when I'm in a spot of bother, the flow of words really helps to get things out, especially when you find you have nothing to say. Sometimes a rhyme or a limerick can really help.
An emotional limerick. You are a little weird.
You can tell he's looking probably a little annoyed, like he's been trying to get something out. But Lorraine just keeps on cracking jokes and firing back straight away. You are too witty.
Sorry.
It's not a bad thing. It's just I don't know how you are you, Lorraine. How you process things, how you bounce back.
Neither do I guess. It just happens. You meet the people I meet, you have the dad I have, you have the crew I used to have. You know, I haven't been very good at it since I've been here, but I was sort of like the talking one on the Phoenix. It's my job to do all the deals, do all the borrowings, how I met Table, how I managed to get so many beautiful recipes out of his lovely wife.
How many did you get?
3 cakes, 4 pies, tarts, and 1 for a sourdough starter.
That's very well done, actually. And lots of those recipes, Kara likes to keep them as trade secrets.
I don't know if they were maybe Kara's trade secrets. They tasted pretty good when I tried it.
Pretty good. Next time I see them, I'm telling them that. And they will shred you a new one.
Well, look, she can take it up with the chef. Potentially, it was my fault.
Loren, I've been writing things. And it is quite opportunistic that you are here right now. And if you have a moment,
Aye.
would you like me to share something I was writing?
A very complicated look passes over her face. Sure. Hit me.
It's about what I've seen with you and Cerise.
Oh.
Just a heads up.
You see for a second her eyes just dart back to the deck, and you know in that moment she's thinking of jumping off and running away. But she doesn't. She makes the conscious effort to stay there.
I am collected and calm, steel-hearted and steadfast. at the most of times. But there are a few moments, ever so rarely, where I break, I muse, and without a murmur or a movement, only silence left in the wake, all but that in front of me, holding me ensnared. Something entwined to you, the reason for you being, the very being that locks your gaze and swallows the key. Loren, how do you turn away? How do you come back? I've seen you with Cerise numerous times, and no matter how many encounters there are, I notice it heavily affects you.
That didn't rhyme very well.
Wasn't really the point of this one.
No, I don't imagine it was.
The truth of the matter is, I have my own encounters, and I relate to what I see with you and Cerise. My judgment gets clouded. I cannot hear anyone around me, and I've seen how you behave when Cerise is near or when Cerise is right there in front of us. I've failed to come back every single time, often to the detriment of my crew and my friends. I make stupid decisions. So how do you do it? How do I be more like you?
And walk away.
Not walk away, but to keep on walking.
There's a look on her face that you know is the face someone tries to make when they try not to burst into tears. I don't know. Sorry, I have no advice. I just keep walking because, frankly, I think doing that thing you want to do more like me, walking any way that isn't next to her, was the biggest mistake I ever made, actually. I have to keep walking because if I turn back, I will go back, and I can't. There's too much at stake.
What if there was no way to go back? Let's say you didn't have that option at all.
Then I've done the right thing, and it sucks. I shouldn't go back. I can't go back.
I don't think you should either.
Do you want to? Is that what this... Do you miss her?
I did enjoy Cerise's company. I do enjoy being around those that are strong. I enjoy being around those who are sure in themselves. But that is usually to get something out of them, to reach some goal of mine. I, like I'm sure most on this vessel, have my own agenda.
Aye.
Cerise was not one of those people. Honestly, Cerise was just good company.
She was. She really was. I miss her too.
When you left, how did you find yourself with Janice, if you don't mind me asking?
I ran into him in the middle of the street. And to be fair, I was keeping an eye out for him, but, doesn't mean it wasn't running into. And I needed somewhere to go where she wouldn't find me. And I'll be honest with you, Fishman, I wasn't really a huge fan of everyone else on this ship when I left.
Well, yeah, we are overly eccentric and weird, so I don't blame you.
Not for that reason. I like Janice the most, and I thought I needed someone who I could trust, who was going somewhere she wouldn't be able to find, and I needed someone who is a shapeshifter. He can control the inner beast or whatever. I can't, but maybe he could help, and he has. I thought, but there's no stopping what you can't control, I guess.
Fishman's been listening quite intently, but you can see his expression quickly changes to that of almost like a subtle sorrow.
A sad honk.
He's so pleased. It's the return of the honk.
The return of the honk.
You turned to a friend.
We weren't friends yet. That happened later. I think he needed someone to trust who, apologies, wasn't on the Polaris when he was taken. And I think... No, you go.
What would you do if friendship soured? Or better yet, more specifically, if friendships dwindled ever so slowly? The faces that you recognize and the people you hold close slowly float away day after day and leave. This is something that I've had to think about.
I figured. Well, the last time I felt I was completely alone in the world, I went on a 10-year bender, and Captain Thunderbolt pulled me out of it. Now, if that were to happen, I don't know, I guess I'd go back to me dad. Triton live a long time too, you know. I don't know what my lifespan is, but 300 years is the record. 301 if you're getting picky. I'm gonna lose a lot of faces.
It might not seem like it, Loren, but we actually have a lot in common.
I think we do.
Every time I didn't find myself fitting in, or those around me became strangers, no longer helped me for my needs, I left. I'd go on benders as well. I've been on countless ships.
Oh, that's where you and I differ. 10 years as a Thunderbolt. And frankly, if Janice turned around tomorrow and said he hated me guts and never wanted to speak to me again, I'd still be on this ship.
I wish I had.
No, you go.
I wish I had have made it 10 years with Tip. That would have been good.
He was a good man. Is a good
Still
man.
is.
He's not dead. Just retired. Which, depending on where you retire to, is probably the same as being dead. Although I assume he's doing well. Kara sent me another recipe.
I have no doubt. Wherever Tibble goes, with us being the exception per se, with the circumstances we were in. But usually good follows Tibble. It's too bad that there's only so much good, or there was only so much good aboard the Polaris and so much of the bad.
Sorry then for being some of the bad.
I mean, I believe I brought a dragon turtle to the ship. What have
A
you done?
dragon turtle.
Dragon turtle, yes.
God, first you all fight a kraken, then a dragon turtle.
Did we mention we ran into... Actually, I will have to double check. Did we run into a Hydra? Was it a Hydra? Yeah. Did I mention we ran into a Hydra as well?
Didn't you work for the Hydra?
We're talking about a real Hydra.
A real Hydra? You guys, what the fuck?
As much as I wish you could experience these, they weren't very fun experiences.
Well, I haven't been having very many fun experiences as it is, Fishman, so potentially I would rather have encountered a kraken. At least then I could say I fought kraken.
I'd say it's probably best to speak to Janice about those. They had a certain flair to them. Makes it seem like you're actually there.
Well, see, he had told me about you guys fighting a Hydra. I just assumed it was a lie.
No. We seem to get ourselves into massive amounts of trouble and somehow get out.
We do.
I just don't know how we keep on beating ourselves. One time after another, something bigger, something scarier.
We
And
keep
now
on
being in
talking.
space, who knows what the fuck we're going to find.
I know. We're going to the moon. Do you think it's made of cheese?
I hope so. I do like cheese.
There's a man in the moon, they say.
Yeah. Okay, on that note, there's a man in the moon, they say. Before Neris pilots off towards the moon, Alton, Gullet, is there anything that either of you want to cover?
Yeah, I'll just quickly cover what Alton was up to. So yeah, he pretty much would have just like said his goodbyes to Fishman. Probably would have just said like, if anyone needs me for a mission or like whatever workings on the ship, I will be in my room having a good old sleep. So like, that's where I'll be essentially. And then he would have just gone to his room, still very like walking pretty slowly, very exhausted, and found like a rat scurrying the halls along the way. Just like scoop him up, take him into his new quarters. I assume he probably would have had his like bags, maybe Fishman would have dumped him there or something. He just like will burrow through it, grab like all of his blankets, throw them on the bed. Jump onto the bed himself, throw all of the blankets on top of him, and just kind of plop there. Just very exhausted and kind of feeling comforted by like all of that weight. And then Rat will just kind of scurry up the leg of the bed and have a little, and he'll I guess gave him some like little bits of like dried fruit or whatever snacks he might have upon him, and just kind of start talking to Rat as he does, just a very exhausted by the events of the day. So what do you reckon, Rat? Was today a success or a failure? We won a fight, lost the battle, killed a traitor, lost a patient. I'm really fucking soft about all of that. Who knows? Maybe it doesn't matter. No need to prove things to people long dead. They soon I'll be. Hells. What if I trained you to bite me every time I feel a stupid fucking emotion? Would that help? Or maybe I could train you to bite the whole crew when that happens, because everyone's feeling a whole lot of shitty emotions right now, and who knows what's going to help with that. Oh well. Good night, Rat. Let's see how much sleep we can get. Hope you like the new quarters. And he's just going to try his best. He's going to try to long rest, but I don't know if we're going to have enough time for that. But he's trying his hardest. So that's what Alton is doing.
All right. And 𝗖𝗓𝗦𝗧, is there anything you're doing?
So when everyone shifted away after Rue had their visit and glittered away back into space, 𝗖𝗓𝗦𝗧 had its own particular understanding and interest of Rue. And I think as everyone sort of shifted away, Fishman up to his crow's nest, and Loren eventually following him, 𝗖𝗔𝗦𝗧 and Janice into the ship itself to see to the things that needed to be seen to, and Alton to go rest and unpack the day. 𝗖𝗓𝗦𝗧 stayed sitting in that space where Rue had been, and it stays there looking up into the vastness of space and contemplating the being, the entity, the thing that it had seen. And I think something stirs in it, a familiarity and a repetitiveness, where it had seen parts of itself in the creature, but it also saw parts of something else, something important to it. So after a while, it shifts down. It's no longer sitting, it's kneeling, and its limbs aren't made to kneel in the way, or maybe they once were, but they're not properly now. And it's kneeling on the deck where this being had been, and it bends down and it presses its forehead to the deck. And there's a quiet moment there before it sits back up, and then it does it again. And this repeats. Loren and Fishman, can I get like a perception check?
You absolutely can, my good friend. And that's a 10 even.
16.
I don't think that either of you, I think Loren, your mind is somewhere else at the moment. And I think Fishman, your mind is distracted also, but you can see that 𝗖𝗓𝗦𝗧 is down on the deck. I don't think you think too much of it. I think you see it there and it just passes your mind as something you've seen. I don't think you pay too much particulars to the movements it's doing or what it is doing.
They haven't brought a bottle of alcohol with them, have they? To share?
Absolutely not. It has not moved from that spot since we left. And it does that for a while, and it stays on the decks.
Okay. So, everyone can take their short rest at least. Alton, we'll see if you can manage to get that long rest.
Fingers crossed. Don't do anything. Come on.
All right. Okay. So, venturing to the moon, 𝗖𝗓𝗧, is there anything in particular of note in the way that you guide the ship?
Yeah. So there's a couple of things. I don't know if Janice eventually comes and gives 𝗖𝗓𝗧 the instruction to go ahead, either in person or if it's just a message.
He would come in person.
Mhm.
Then linger a little bit longer as Neres sets into doing what he does before checking back on everyone else.
So there's a couple of things that have changed about Neres in the time that he's been waiting. Firstly, there is a number of spell components that have been laid out around the mystical figure of Neres, the shimmering illusion, as he is attempting to cast a couple of spells. The first spell, Neres would like to cast Detect Thoughts and observe the entirety of the ship to see if he can catch any brainwaves that are not part of the crew of the Spirited Gull.
You do not detect anything that you do not expect to.
You also get secondhand depression because everyone on the ship, I'm pretty sure, is depressed, and you just got all of that.
The mystical form of Neres will reappear with a single tear rolling down his face. And after shaking that off, is going to attempt to cast another spell that he hasn't done before, that he's been sort of trying to work on a little bit. It's a spell that he has heard other mages make great use of in their downtime, and he's going to attempt to cast Private Sanctum on the helm with a couple of caveats just to try and see if it will work. So there is no visual difference, there's no vision obscuring or anything. The only caveats that Neres wants put on this spell is that no one can teleport into or out of the zone, which is essentially the room where the helm is all that we're specifying.
Okay.
And creatures within the area cannot be targeted by divination spells. That is all that we're working on for the time being. We just want to see if that works. So he's put that up. The other thing I think Janice would notice is as Janice enters the room, the illusory figure does look up at Janice, as does the figure in the helm. His eyes are still closed, except for a glowing image almost imprinted in Neres's forehead, that of a glowing, vibrantly blue third eye that opens and looks in your direction, and you sense it sees more than the material.
Stognish B, that's new.
I'm trying a new look.
It's bold. It's certainly a look. I like it.
I'm going to be honest, it is very incredibly distracting.
Yes, 2 eyes are pretty distracting normally. 3 eyes are, yes.
I have been working on ways to allow myself to see more. For the last week, time is confusing. I have been able to illuminate that which is dark.
Really?
However, I've come to the understanding that I can change that, and I can illuminate other things in my mind. Now that we are approaching a new level of understanding of the planes, one should potentially be able to at least view that which is around us. This, and Neres taps his forehead as the eye slowly begins to fade. I can see more. I do not know how to describe it. That which walks unseen in different planes is now no longer hidden.
That's some upgrade. I personally would have just gotten a new glasses prescription.
Your humor is unmatched.
Sorry, could you say that one again?
Your humor is unmatched.
Well, thank you. I try. It's a little bit hard without the, my old crew here. Everyone here is a lot more serious, if you can believe it. You were learning quickly. That's good. That's impressive.
It is required.
It is. Good. Is the voyage going smoothly? Almost feels like a I don't get seasick, but it almost feels like what I think seasickness would be like.
It is. I'm going to be honest, I'm unsure if it is going smoothly. I know the course which we are on is direct and what we wish to achieve, but I am unfamiliar with what this sensation is meant to feel like, as I'm sure we all are.
Well, we haven't moored on anything yet, so we can only hope that it is a good thing. At least you've got three times the amount of eyes to keep and no. At least you've got an extra eye to keep out for everything now, I suppose.
We shall see.
Yes. I've informed the crew. Hopefully this is the best we need, and I suppose we'll just find out what there is to find on this. The moon, controller of the tides, hanging aloft in a different plane. It's, again, impossible to imagine, but I suppose we shall see. Good job, Director.
Thank you, Captain. Far be it from me to direct your attention, as it were.
Your humor also is unmatched, I see.
I was not...
Continue.
This position on the helm allows some exploration aboard this vessel. Would you be so kind, as captain, to check in with a couple of the crewmates to assess their well-being?
Oh, of course. Who do you wish me to check on? I will do it right away.
Unfortunately, there appears to be a great deal of misery and confusion aboard the entire vessel. However, as a priority, if you would not mind, one of our navigators, Lorraine.
I am well acquainted with her, yes.
I do not wish to point fingers, but she has threatened to pick me up and rattle me like a maraca, whatever that may be.
Well, was that in response to anything in particular or just in general?
I just believe there is humor derived from my pain, and I would wish for that to not occur.
If that's concerning you, I can definitely go and talk to her about it. Do not worry, my friend.
Perhaps don't mention those exact words.
Oh, of course. No, it'll be completely confidential. Don't worry.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Captain. We are en route to the moon. Should you require any assistance at all, please let me know.
No trouble. We shall await arrival and see how things go. He nods at Neres. And then as he strides out to go and check on everyone, because is Lorraine in her room right now?
She would still be up in the crow's nest with Fishman.
Up in the crow's nest. Okay. So he nods at Neres, and then he turns Curtly out, and he would have checked in on every member as well, as best he could, to see where their locations are and to let them know that we will be moving, and that's our current intention. He probably just knocked on Alton's door a few times, was like, "Are you dead?" And then just heard maybe, does Alton snore?
Yeah. Sure.
Or did Alton just wake up and just yell at him? He's knock on Alton's door, like, "Are you dead?"
What?
Sleeping, good, excellent, keep sleeping, we're traveling. We'll let you know if there's any trouble. Sweet dreams!
Okay. Don't die.
Don't let the monsters bite! But yeah, he would have checked in on everyone. But just after he spoke with Neres on this matter, he nods, turns, walks out on the deck, sees Lorraine and Fishman still perched up, and is like, "Hey, Lorraine!
Captain!
Stop bullying Neres!
Why?
You know why. He has a fragile temperament.
Well, yeah. Doesn't mean he doesn't deserve to be bullied.
Regardless, request. Don't let me make it an order."
Aye, aye, Captain.
Thank you, Lorraine. Good job. Are you two good up there?
Peachy.
Well, eyes to the sky. Sorry.
Fishman said the exact same thing at the same time. I just was muted.
Oh my god, can you guys just say it again then? A count of three. I just did.
2, 1.
Peachy.
Oh boy. Well, in true unison as two navigators can be. Well, eyes to the stars. It really does look strange traveling like this. There's really no horizon point. Such a blur. Do what it is you do best. If you spot anything, make noise as always.
You'll be the first to know.
Dennis kind of like jump hop clambers, using those celestial wings that manifest every now and then that just like sort of like flit out and then suck back in, to sort of like get a little bit higher up on the ship and just like stand there with his arms crossed, watching everything. And again, surveying the people up in the crow's nest, if Galut is still standing on the deck, and then just the flurry of movement, as I imagine if we're traveling through space. I don't know how fast the ship travels or even how much space is traversed, but it would still be quite disorientating for anyone used to any sort of normal travel.
Yes, it is quite fast, especially when in more vacuumed areas. There's a kind of light hum sensation that kind of emanates that you feel from being in contact with the ship.
Yeah, Janet's almost kind of like hunkers down a little bit more. He keeps those storm grey wings manifested and sort of like not protecting himself, but sort of like hugging them close to his body, and they sort of like ruffle as as just not even the wind because it's space, but like this incredible magical object just continues to hurtle through a different plane, a different way of reality, I guess. And he keeps his eyes trapped on that space in the distance. The moon.
All right. And so as the ship hurtles unfathomably fast through space, you see in the distance small, what begins to look like a speck of dust expand outwards and outwards as you get closer and closer. And this speck of dust grows into this gargantuan sphere of rock in a light white grey coloration, pitted and cratered, with more and more detail as you reach closer and closer, almost shimmering a little, reflecting off the stars in the distance. And then you see just off to the side, as you get close enough that your trajectory is slowed down, something that even those of you who are used to navigating by stars and celestial bodies and have looked up to the skies with telescopic lenses have not seen before. Neris, can you confirm for me which version of your third eye you are using?
Ethereal sight.
Ethereal sight. So there is a hint, and that your symbiosis at the moment with the ship enables everyone else to kind of see it as well. The Citadel of stone, of rock, that seems simultaneously of this plane and not of it, that just is drifting very slowly, almost imperceptibly slowly around the moon. The top, that stone citadel, the towers are a luminous silver and sapphire inlaid into the rock. What would you like to do?
Ladies and gentlemen, we have arrived at our destination.
Well, I'll be damned. Great Shognash. What on earth is that?
Certainly is a sight to see.
Does there look to be some form of method of transit through this? Is there some form of entryway or anything like that?
So you would probably be able to get close enough to the Citadel that you would be able to essentially dock the ship upon an entryway. You'd have to venture a little bit closer to know exactly where upon the edge of the Citadel you would need to essentially park the ship. But by the looks of it, you should be able to find a spot.
Does it seem like there's been any sort of traffic in the area?
Roll me a perception check.
There's a straight 10.
Straight 10. None that you can perceive.
Captain.
Well, do you recognize any kind of magical potential here? Any trace of what was here recently and what is now not here? Magic of the gods? I don't feel anything.
Rue has inadvertently or otherwise led us to this location. I do not know why, but there is potential that we may not find out unless we explore.
Then that is what we must do. This is the only clue we have been given. This is where fate wishes to take us. Crew, we shall be investigating, but we will take great caution. We are in a different plane. We must be wary. And above all else, if this is potentially a place of great import, of great magical significance, a sign pointed to, we must be wary that the others may not be far behind, if we are in the right path.
Aye, Captain. No sudden moves. Easy going.
And preferably and preferably no running towards the general of the undead god army, ideally as well. Don't think you haven't gotten out of that one.
I don't know what you're talking about, Captain.
We'll see. We'll see, Loren.
Fishman leans in and goes, "See, that's very funny because I got away from doing that, but you didn't."
You know, I'm just starting to like ya. Don't push it.
If 𝗖𝗔𝗦𝗧 comprehended properly what was going on, it would probably say something very similar.
I think Alton was probably just kind of stumbled over to the group, looking very tired, and he would have snorted at Fishman's comment.
Don't worry, kids. I love you all equally. Just joking. You're all adults. Please don't make that kind of connection with me. All right. Prepare. Pack. We shall see how we can traverse this space.
Indeed. What kind of elements are we going to be in exactly?
Neras, any surface level impressions?
Any surface level impressions, Doug?
Not overly. So you it seems to be well made, carved out of stone and rock, very similar to that of the moon, almost as if it was carved from a chunk of the moon itself. There is some symbology on there. Anyone who wishes to can make me a history or religion check to identify it or to see if they recognize it. Loren, I can see that you are going for that, and is 𝗖𝗦𝗧 rolling for that as well? The reason I point out those two is, can I get each of you two to roll with advantage? Anyone else rolls standard.
Look, we're special babies.
Oh, cause.
That was a 24 for 𝗖𝗦𝗧.
That was a 23 for Loren. Religion,
Nice.
not history.
Nice.
Also religion for 𝗖𝗦𝗧.
Okay. Well,
21 history for now.
okay.
Alton got a 3. He's just trying to look at the
Fishman got a
environment hey, Bruce! He's like, can we breathe in this? Is it cold? What?
So, Loren and Neris, I think going history was definitely the better choice for you, given that you probably wouldn't recognize these if it were for religion. However, having studied some more ancient stuff, and Loren and 𝗖𝗦𝗧, given your past and your more direct knowledge of the symbology, these are old ancient symbols typically associated with Loomis, one of the prime deities, and one of the first gods, well, not quite the first, but their allies, often known as the Man in the Moon.
Okay.
Neris, a lot of these symbols have fallen out of use outside of the actual faithful of Loomis, but there are one or two that have kind of evolved along centuries and millennia and still retain enough similarity to the symbols that are used today that you're able to kind of piece together. Oh, so that must be an ancient precursor to this symbol that exists today.
Okay, so immediately on learning that information and learning Lumos, prime deity, some form of essentially parent god, and still having that an omnipotent form that he had before when he was watching everything happen on board.
Omniscient. Key difference there. Omniscient. You're aware of everything on the ship. You are not omnipotent.
That works for me.
I think to add to this, if you're going in the direction that I assume you are, 𝗖𝗔𝗦𝗧 has dropped to its knees again, and it presses its forehead down.
Neris has instantly turned and essentially is focusing all of his attention on 𝗖𝗔𝗦𝗧.
And this is in the full sight of everyone because it's on deck with everyone, but it leans its head down, presses its head to the deck, and then kneels back up. And I think, Neris, you definitely see this, and anyone else who would turn to see what 𝗖𝗔𝗦𝗧 is doing, which I can imagine most of you would, given it is a huge creature that has just made a sudden movement. And when it dropped to its knees, it wasn't a gentle, it has purposefully gone down onto its knees. It does it quite rapidly. And so it would have made quite a sound where it seems to be surprised almost. Maybe not quite as surprised as it could be, but definitely there's this shocked sort of awe about it. And any of you looking at it can see a wetness to its face that it didn't have before. Its eyes don't have the same sort of shape structure where it would have eyelids in a place where you can see that its eyes are welling up, but you can just see this wetness streaming down its face as it looks up at these symbols. And it presses its head down. I think 7 times is when it presses its head, how many times it presses its head down before it stands to its full height and it bows.
Hey now, what's going on here?
From the crow's nest, Loren stands back up on top of the little bucket and then jumps down, and her necklace kind of flashes a little as she feather falls down onto the deck. And she kind of just watches 𝗖𝗦𝗧 the whole time. It's praying, Captain.
Have you been here before? Do you know this place? Jazz attempts to speaks grandly to 𝗖𝗦𝗧.
I think 𝗖𝗦𝗧 kind of gets a bit surprised out of its rever, and it turns to you. It's still standing at its full height, so it might at first seem quite intimidating as it turns, but you can see that it is almost the most relaxed that you've seen it. And it just turns its head furiously, as if trying to understand your question at first. Where the frick did I put my dice? Yeah, so it kind of turns its head. Yeah, it looks confused by what you're asking it.
Wonderful later. Interesting. Neros, any thoughts? Any other specifications you're able to figure out? There seems to be some sort of rocky structure, some sort of palace almost.
The Citadel is almost created from the same material as the moon itself. I know not how long it has been here, but craftsmanship is unlike any I've seen. Also, these runes carved into the stone itself in an old language reference a prime deity known as Lumos. which I believe appears to be of not small significance to Galut.
When you say Loomis's name, Galut puts its thumb, doesn't really look like a thumb, but puts its thumb to its forehead and bows its head again. And it will do so anytime anyone mentions Loomis by name.
Interesting.
And Neris, did Galut end up wearing one of the sending earpieces that we had?
Don't believe so, no.
Neris is going to look at Galut. He will very quickly raise a finger to Janice, and then tap his head and point to Galut. He's going to try and project a series of images via message to Galut, attempting to ask about a time that was before. Is there a youth? Is there a previous... How long has Galut been here? And how long has your mind been focused on Lumos? And are there any differences in those timelines?
I need to ask you a difficult question for you, Mitch, but it will very specifically vary the kind of answer that Galut would give. But what are the images, or the form of... What form do the images take for you to try and ask this question of it?
Neris will attempt to create a conversation, a back and forth. Neris will project images of himself going back through time, images of him on board the Polaris, then a younger him on board a different ship, more eager, and then an image of him with an older gnome as a child learning something from a book, and then an image of him with his parents talking in a language that I don't think you would understand, but they seem to be almost scolding him, and then an image of him playing with kids his age, very young. Then there is questioning images of yourself as you are, yourself when this group that stands before you found you, and then of Lumos. And he's essentially asking you to fill in the blanks.
Just a note,
Okay.
is Loomis, not Lumos.
Miss, my apologies, thank you.
So there's this brief moment that anyone watching this interaction sees, I guess, this jolt go through Galut, where its body shifts involuntarily like it's gotten a shock. And I think that Neris, you might realize that's when you show it an image of itself, how you see it. You don't think that it has really seen itself, and in its state, you don't think that if it has seen itself, it's thought that it was itself. It knows that it's wrong now, but it didn't know how or to what extent. And so there's this brief pause as it thinks of that and then thinks of what you've shown it, and it tries. And I think you can, with the nature of your magic and how you feel people's minds, you can feel that it's almost painful for this creature to try and find those memories, that time before, but you can tell, and you got a snippet of it on the docks before we left into space. There is a time before, and I don't think you get much, but you don't think it's because Galut doesn't want to show you. You think it might be because it can't, because there's something broken in it that may never make sense ever again. But you see, I think you see a flash of pain. I think you see for a moment the face of, you see Elton's brother for a moment, just briefly. And then you see Exley. You see Exley a lot. And in the times you see Exley, there's a lot of pain and a lot of change. And then you see fighting. And I think the feeling you feel with those images isn't fear or disgust. There's a pride in the fight. There's a almost piousness in this war as you see swords and magic and the awful parts of war too, disembowelment, the mud, the muck, but you also see the camaraderie. You see it fighting by... I think you see a small snippet of a platoon. There are some humans, I think a gnome and a dwarf in there maybe, but the rest are mostly bugbear. And then I think you see earlier, and you see this figurehead, this almost mocking figurehead, with these symbols of Loomis laughing at its enemies. And I think for a moment you recognize one of its eyes. And then you see a church, just a small one, just a quiet one, shackled together. And you see a young boy on his knees, fur scuffed and dirty, an old man, fur graying at the temples, with a hand on his shoulder. And you know that it resonates throughout its life. This figurehead, this piousness, this deity, it never left it. I think you think that Loomis might be the part of it has left. The only part of it has left from before.
I think Neris will pull back and is just going to privately send Janice a message. And I think Neris will detail everything that he saw.
Janice just sort of like does like, he quite often does this when it's not required for him to be sneaky or subtle. Is that he does like little nods when someone's like talking to him, communicating with him in a way that's like not directly verbal. And he does a sharp intake of breath and his brow furrows as he looks over 𝗖𝗓. Can he respond to Neris in any way, or I guess it's just message, isn't it? Yeah. He just nods and goes, I see. Well, okay
He's
then.
still just looking down at Neris curiously.
Neris
Yeah.
haven't left 𝗖𝗓.
Yeah, Janice just... There's a dark expression over his face like it's something that he has suspected, and unfortunately now something has been potentially confirmed. The sort of spark that he did initially see when he took pity on 𝗖𝗓 and couldn't read it in himself to leave it. And that same spark that also made him want to trust it. And he just looks, for a moment, very sad, and then he just nods. Well, we are in good company then. This is potentially either something made to worship Loomis and celebrate them, or it is something nefarious indeed, and we need to root that out. Friend, 𝗖𝗓, would you wish to accompany us to inspect these grounds?
I think it turns away from Neris and looks down to you. And I also think the two of you now having this additional context, I think maybe it clicks to both of you that the fact that it's standing at full height now, when it's rare to generally, it's standing at the attention of its god. And it turns to you, Janice, and I think you see in its eyes, there's nothing that you could do to stop it from finding out what's happening here.
Jazz just nods, steely-eyed. Good. Well, Neris, if there's no other concerns about the area, then we will find out how easy it is to traverse. Because this, like, formation is really close to us, right, Darby? It's not that hard
Yeah.
to get... Yeah, we're basically floating so close to this strange structure. Right, well, we'll see how this goes. One moment. And he's going to jump up and spread his wings out to their full length. And he is going to try and fly and breach that gap. Which I imagine would get very disconcerted and very, like, warped the second that he treads out of that little bubble that fixes the gravity and, like, the atmosphere of the ship. What happens, like, the second that, like, you know, he reaches a hand out, flying beyond that expanse, I
when
guess.
you reach a hand out of the bubble, nothing in particular happens. You notice the difference in gravity immediately. When you ascend further or traverse further and your head is no longer within that area, you suddenly begin to feel there is no oxygen outside of, there is no air outside of this bubble.
So yeah, for someone who can breathe who's basically amphibious because he can breathe both air and water.
Yeah, so this would be a new sensation to Janice.
Yeah, no. So you see him quite confidently in that sort of perhaps unearned bravado that he sometimes has, where he will just crash headfirst on into something. Janice stretches out of this space, and then wings. It's quite an amazing figure. Again, nothing Janice does is subtle, but sort of the moment that well, it'll be a bit difficult to see, I guess, from that point. Probably Neras might see the best, or Loran or Fishman, because they just have really good sight because they're navigators. But you almost see, for a moment, he's sort of very confident, and then there's that beat where he he goes to take a breath of air, can't get it. And then you see those scars along the sides of his neck sort of open up for a moment like gills and just flutter uselessly, and then he immediately just drops back down like a stone onto the ship. Not in a crouch, so not he's about to die or anything like that, but he just drops purposefully back down into that sort of space. Feathers all completely ruffled, much like a bird. And then just go,
Captain, that's not.
One note here. Oh, he kind of stands up, stretches, creaks out a bit. Okay, one hurdle immediately. There's no air out there.
Oh boy. Alton had run to his side. He'd kind of seeing Janice leap out as well. He'd gone right for his med pack thing. Oh god, all right, he's just leaping into danger. I will just quickly shoot back and mention that during everything with Gulut, seeing Gulut obviously praying, seeing Gulut being very driven and kind of fixated, Alton, if anyone had been looking at Alton, they would have seen that he had very tense body language, had a mixture of emotions going across his face. He did not look happy with this. He had flashes of anger, elements of disappointment and regret, and he would have just turned aside and gone to busy about with his medical supplies, which he then will run to Janice's side too. I'll give him a quick look over.
No, it's all good. I'll just take a couple of breaths. Boy, I am quite, you've done a very good job, actually, with the, this whole air bubble thing here. Yes, no, I'll have to thank Eldrin once he's well rested. What are we going to do about this? I hadn't actually considered this. I have heard tale of the planes of fire and planes of, well, not air, but, water and all of that. Didn't necessarily have anywhere to breathe, but I'm not used to this.
How big is the gap, Darby?
So currently it's... Have you come into dock yet, Neris, or are you still...
Neris would be coming into dock as Janice is jumping up, so not quite there yet, but we're coming in.
So, yeah, so at this moment, probably 200-300 feet, but closing.
No, that's fine. Never mind. Look, we'll wait.
I will admit I hadn't considered this, but there will be a way around it. Surely. You have breathed... Oh, no, he's not going to mention that we breathed underwater because, he wasn't there for that.
Yes, I think this is something that's going to need a magical solution of some sort. Do we have any of those weird water-breathing things from before. Would that work in this situation?
Unfortunately, we would not be breathing water unless we have any way to engulf our head in water, which potentially magic may be able to assist with, however, for a limited time.
It's worth investigating. I don't exactly wish to idle with our only potential point of interest.
Darby,
Well then-
how
oh,
close
sorry.
is the bubble? Sorry.
So the actual bubble. Let me find the specific.
I think also while you're looking that up, if anyone's paying attention to Galut, it looks quite curious after Janice left the bubble and came back, and what the effects seemed to be on Janice, and it seems to now be looking at the bubble almost inquisitively.
As this is sort of happening, Loren's just gonna come over to Janice and just kind of squat next to him and just be like, so what was that about running into danger headlong and getting yourself in trouble?
Look, okay, all right, okay.
I'm just saying, Captain, what's good for the goose is good for the gander, isn't it?
Well, you see, I trump all of that because this is just what I do.
So,
Okay.
I'm allowed a bit of hypocrisy every now and then, sister.
All right. Also, to be fair, I think once we dock, it might have an atmosphere. Maybe.
I'm not sure.
So you did notice that, so it was probably around about 100 feet or so out from the ship that Janice was suddenly unable to breathe. And yeah, at that point he was still probably a decent way away from the Citadel by probably more than a similar amount.
Is there any discernible point where the bubble curves close enough to the ship that Galut could test it? Like push itself out of the bubble for just a moment?
Not really, because it extends basically. You could, yeah. So it extends from the ship in all directions from by about 100 feet or so. You could, like, now that the ship is getting pretty much close to docking, if you so desired, potentially make a running start and try to leap towards the Citadel, but
No, I don't think so. I think, anyone watching Galut, it appears to be quite curious about the bubble, quite inquisitive about the bubble, but it doesn't make any move or action yet.
I think in watching Janice test the bubble, Galut start to have its own inquiries about the bubble. Potentially, if anyone else is considering like looking around, maybe starting to pace, getting a little bit antsy, I think just a voice will kind of just permeate. Perhaps we should wait until we dock. We do not, for one, know what sort of troubles are waiting for us. If we are to leap off, we may find ourselves in danger with no backup. Alternatively, if we all wait and step off together, we may find that a solution will present itself. Patience, perhaps.
Oh, of course.
Yes,
Now
please.
still steer the ship.
Yeah.
Please don't asphyxiate yourself, everyone. Just stay alive here.
all right. So with a few moments more, Neris, you maneuver the ship in such a way that you're able to dock with the Citadel, such that you would be able to simply traverse across its entrance.
Now that we are a little bit closer, and it's slightly safer to do so, are we able to test now as a group or as a couple of individuals whether we can potentially get a little bit closer into this Citadel now?
You can if you so desire.
Perhaps now may be a good opportunity to try. Now there is reduced risk of losing oneself.
All right, might as well boldly go where no fish has gone before. And she kind of slaps Janice on the shoulder. Goose and gander, yeah?
Yes. All right, you're volunteering. We shall investigate first.
Why not? We're the fun ones.
Good. All right. Fishman, keep an eye out for any approaching attackers. Others, stand by. We shall see how this goes.
Fishman gives a salute.
I think regardless of what you say, Galut steps forward with you as you move towards the Citadel. It does not give you an option.
You as well. Wait a moment. We will see if it is safe. Jazz doesn't check to see if it's
It goes forward with you.
Janice kind of like grimaces again, considering what he now is very suspicious about with Galut, but he does not move to stop it. And instead, he's sort of shakes his back out a little bit and spreads these long storm grey wings out, which seem to always sort of stretch out of nowhere, basically, from his back, and he's just armor always seems to accommodate for it. And then he's like, "All right, then, let us see."
All right.
The unknown.
And then he will do a bit of a run and a leap.
Yeah. And
Run and leap after.
yeah, and as you do so and you reach the Citadel itself, you can breathe just fine.
Ooh, that's lucky. Ooh.
Oh, thank the gods. Oh, boy.
Okay, good. So similar to down there then. The closer we are. And then Janice turns and tries to call out to the ship whether they hear him or not. Well, actually, no. And then Janice taps the necklace, the communications necklace, and is like, "Safe, as far as we can see."
To himself, but loud enough for anyone else to hear. I think Neris will... patience. Always the victor. Shall we?
Crew, we shall proceed.
So, as you each find yourself disembarking from the ship and stepping into this kind of outside area of the Citadel. Once you are all on the surface, you see the Citadel's door open, and what appears to be a older elven gentleman, pale skin, long silvery blue hair, in deep blue and silver robes, and a staff by his side, adorned with a moon atop it that seems to shift slowly through the different phases. He walks out of it slowly and calmly.
Steady, someone's approaching.
Is that someone doing here?
What's this old fuck doing on the moon?
Galut, you immediately recognize this figure. You have never met this figure, but you have had meetings with this figure
Darby, no.
within your dreams, in visions.
Darby, no. The Lord is immediately at its knees. Its forehead is pressed down to the ground. It's as low to the ground as it can possibly go.
Darby, does Loren recognize him?
Roll me a religion check.
Okay, 17.
17. This is fairly... The look of this figure is fairly consistent with depictions of Loomis.
Loren looks at this old man and looks at what Galut is doing. And Janice mostly would be the only one to hear this because they're right next to each other. After her little old fuck comment, she just goes, "Wait, no, oh gods, I just blasphemed. Oh fuck, and then like out loud, almost like this is growing scale, she just goes, "I'm sorry, hello, are you a god?"
And that's where we're going to leave it for this episode.
Ooh. All right.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Oh my god.
Huh. We just literally accidentally found a god.
An old
Hello. What are you doing
Oh
here?
god, and then we'll talk.
Oh my gosh.
Thank
okay.
you. Thank you so
Thanks for
much,
joining us all.
everyone.
Thanks for joining
Thanks,
us.
guys.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let us know what you think. Thank you.
Folks, we're just getting started. See you next time.
Bye.
Sorry for
Bye.
this.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, there's a word in the song that sounds like exactly like saying champagne for champagne, but with a Finnish accent. I wonder what that word means.
Champagne.
Could it be?
Yeah.
Champagne, because it's a French word originally, so in Finnish it would just sound like champagne with a Finnish accent. I was like, oh.
Yeah,
Oh, you're a bit of a
'cause-
himbo sometimes.
Yeah.
I hope you know that.
I am the himbo.
Yeah,
That-
it's
Finnish
true.
and a lot of the Slavic languages, what you see is exactly how you pronounce. So him calling him like saying it like that is very.
I do think my favorite sentence he said, just the way the words pina colada sounds in an
ADHD.
aggressive Finnish accent is really
It's
good.
very good.